The book is an anti-war classic that in 1930 became an award-winning movie. Now, All Quiet on the Western Front is back, offering striking parallels to the current fighting in Ukraine. With Mark Phillips, we take a closer look.
You wouldn't have thought a book that has sold more than 40 million copies and been made into a movie twice before would need another remake.
I wanted to make the experience as physical or visceral as possible for you.
Director Edward Berger's new version of All Quiet on the Western Front has come at a time when the world doesn't need more vividly manufactured war scenes on its screens. It's getting plenty of the real thing from the war in Ukraine, which is also proving again that the lessons of history are rarely learned. That may be a good enough reason for a refresher course. The Netflix version is so effectively done, it's been nominated for 9 Academy Awards.
So we really try to put you into the shoes of these kids underneath the tent, to really feel that panic and the vibrating ground.
All Quiet on the Western Front follows German soldiers descending into the hell of the trenches of the First World War. It's still considered amongst the most powerful anti-war stories ever written. The original book by German First World War veteran Erich Maria Remarque was an immediate sensation when it was published in 1929. But it was also controversial. The Nazis considered it so defeatist and un-German, they banned it and burned it when they came to power. The first film version, which came out of Hollywood in 1930, is a classic that won Oscars for Best Picture and Best Director. And a 1979 made-for-TV version, which ran on CBS, won a Golden Globe and an Emmy. The brutal battle scenes in the current version, Berger says, are there for a reason.
We didn't want to make a violent movie for violence sake. We wanted to make a movie that grabs you by the lapel, drags you through the mud, and gives you the feeling, the very subjective feeling. In my opinion, it has to be violent and brutal to the edge, because everything else would be propaganda.
But the fact that a movie about war is now so topical is mostly an accident. The project actually began 3 years ago, well before Vladimir Putin's army rolled into Ukraine. Although Berger says he did feel at the time that trouble in some form was coming.
And the why now was mostly motivated by a feeling that we had when we watched what happened in parliaments around the world. In America, with the administration, Brexit, Orban in Hungary, in Germany, a far-right party rising again.
You just thought things were in general decline and it was time to remind people of things?
Well, there was general antagonism.
The politics may have been different then, but there are plenty of parallels between the First World War and the current war in Ukraine. The main character in All Quiet on the Western Front is Paul Bäumer, a German teenager caught up in the nationalistic fervor that sent millions of kids to the front. Kids who were told it would all be over soon. But it's a story of almost instant disillusionment. In the Imperial War Museum in London, they've reconstructed a First World War trench, which is where we met Felix Kammerer, who plays Paul Bäumer. It's his first ever role in front of a camera. Frankly, you don't look like the war hero type. Do you think you were kind of cast against type in this movie?
We were not aiming for a war hero. We were aiming for a very usual, a very common boy from whose perspective we could look. And it's really about a boy that is like millions of others at that time and nowadays too.
And nowadays it's clear again the so-called war to end all wars didn't. Is it all the more relevant because Europe's back at war?
I can see that there are parallels. You know, we see film footage of Ukrainians in trenches, and they are sort of sheltering from artillery, which of course is a big feature of the First World War.
Sarah Patterson is a curator at the British War Museum. Is there a moral role for films like this revisiting some of the great military tragedies of our time?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's great that we are talking about this now. And I think, you know, we are supposed to learn from history, even if it doesn't actually happen quite like that in real life, sadly, as we see in Europe today.
In the end, though, it's just a movie and can only do so much.
Ludwig ist tot, Franz ist tot. Was geht's uns an? Wenigstens haben Sie Ruhe. Wir lieben.
Of course, you are baffled and you are shocked that something like this can happen again and again and again. But at the same time, it just shows the relevance, once again, of this film, that we can't just stop thinking about war as a topic and war as a reality, because we seem to just not getting any cleverer. We just keep doing the same mistakes for thousands and thousands of years.